up, but we don't really know. They could be just pounding sand in the desert for all we know. He just announced last night he's bringing in 30,000 Syrian refugees anyway. How's that for intelligence? Well, that's my cue to take a quick break.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
My Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com. It's the only company I trust to protect my wealth. Call 800-BUYCO.
ISIS is demonstrating new ambition. We have to break the group's momentum, and then it's back. Our goal is not to deter or contain ISIS, but to defeat and destroy ISIS.
All right, so she's trying to demonstrate she's tougher than the thin smoking man in the White House. Does she mean it? Who knows? Who knows what she means? We know that there's only one person who'll do it, Trump, period, end of story. It's simple. He'll unleash the force of hell on them. They won't know what hit them. And I want to talk about that at some point. I don't have the time right now. I may do it in the next hour. I've been thinking about this. It's going to take total war to defeat them. Make no mistake about it. A strike here and a strike there is going to do nothing. Now, I want to remind you of something that many of you are not aware of, and it's a horrible reality, but you know you can't argue with reality. World War II, end of World War II. The Japanese had lost their Air Force. They had lost their Navy. After some horrible battles, we almost lost the war. And there was the issue of taking the homeland because they wouldn't surrender. The people wanted to surrender, but the militaristic wing of the Japanese people, which was the military, would not surrender because it was not in their culture to surrender. Bushido required they never surrender to an enemy. They'd rather commit suicide. And so they vowed to fight to the death. And the atrocities of the Japanese army throughout the war equaled that or exceeded that of ISIS. You don't understand that. This is not the first time the world has seen this type of barbarism. You can compare it, as I did, and I was the first in the media to do it because I know a little bit about history, to the Mongol invasions where they killed everyone in town. If they took a city, the Mongols killed everyone except the women that they wanted to enslave and rape. Did you know that? They burnt everything to the ground. They blew up everything. They decimated the whole city. So what ISIS is doing is no different than what the Mongols did. And for that matter, the Japanese did the same thing in many ways. Take a look, for example, at the rape of Nanking. If you know the history of the rape of Nanking, it was an atrocity equal to that of the Mongols. But what I'm getting at is, look at the beheadings of the Japanese military. Look how they beheaded American, Australian, British soldiers they captured. They starved people to death, humiliated them, cut their heads off. So, what am I getting at? There was only one way to defeat such a barbaric enemy. And we had a war leader at the time, Harry Truman. I don't know if you know this little part of history, but his name, Truman, scared the Japanese. When FDR died, the vice president, Truman, took over. And history teaches us that the Japanese leadership was very worried because they said, now we're going to have a real problem because Truman is now in office. Well, the Truman made a decision. He didn't want to kill innocent Japanese men, women, and children, but he knew that in order to break them, he had to break them. And so he used an experimental weapon on Hiroshima and then on Nagasaki, killing mostly innocent men, women, and children. That's even though Hiroshima was largely a manufacturing city for the war machine, but that's a separate story. It was not done so much to take out their war manufacturing capacity. It was done to, frankly, out-terrorize the enemy. I'm sorry to tell you that. In other words, he fought terror with terror. And he also had made that calculation because he knew by what had happened in Okinawa that if he tried to take the Japanese homeland with American troops, we would have lost between 500,000 and 1 million American men. And what he said was, better them than us. My father-in-law wouldn't have survived the war. He just almost died in the Mediterranean. He's a naval officer. And then they were ready to ship him to Japan. He wouldn't have survived that one. What happened to him in the Mediterranean was enough to last a lifetime of scarring.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of unprotected talk, borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
Well, here he is, Michael Savage. I guess we'll go with hour two with the Boston Marathon bombing, Muslim Sano brothers, let's see, Nidal Hassan, Muslim psychiatrist at Fort Hood, and about 100 other issues like this. And yet Hillary says it's not Muslims, we shouldn't worry about it. Well, the fact of the matter is, the House of Representatives, the United States House of Representatives, just voted to increase scrutiny of refugees wanting to come in from Syria and Iraq, a common sense measure. And so many Democrats joined Republicans on this vote to increase scrutiny on refugee screening process, that it is a veto-proof measure, making Obama furious because he threatened to veto this. It passed 289 to 137 just an hour ago. Only 2 Republicans voted against the bill, while 47 Democrats joined majority in voting to pass the legislation. Now, I'm sure you want to know which Republicans voted against the bill, and we'll get that to you on the Savage Nation. But the fact of the matter is, it made such common sense that Democrats joined them. Of course, not to be outdone by stupidity is Representative Nancy Cuckoo Clock Pelosi, saying this bill does not make us safer, it does not reflect our values. Look who's talking about values. Here's a woman who went to the sex parade, the gay sex parade with whips and chains and leather, and says that's San Francisco's values. Says this bill does not make us safer, it does not reflect our values, and it does not have my support. She prefers a bill put forward by Representative Strange Zoe Lofgren. Unbelievable, idiot. What a bill she came up with. Now let's see what Paul Ryan said, the new speaker. He said, this plan pauses the program. It's a security test, not a religious test. Ryan's remarks came before the passage of McCall's bill, stressing, quote, we cannot and should not wait to act, not when our national security is at stake. He said this is the first step to protect Americans and to defeat ISIS. He's right. So the House did something good, defying Obama, and we'll have to see what happens when it gets to the Senate, because that's a whole different world over there. The Whigs are a whole different thing. Donald Trump was on the Savage Nation yesterday with people saying the best interview he's done ever. He said, people said to me that you and Trump have a special rapport that nobody else in the media seems to have. You kind of talk the same language. You talk the same lingo. It sounds like you come from the same place. Well, he came from the good side of the tracks, and I came from the poor side of the tracks. In Queens, New York. He was on the other side of Union Turnpike than I was. I was in the attached red brick row houses, and he came from a family of means, and they lived in a beautiful detached home up near Cunningham Park. I always aspired to live there. Of course, I don't aspire to live there anymore, but I'm just saying to you, we grew up breathing the same air. He went to private schools. I think he went to the New York Military Academy. I never went there, but I had a friend who did go there. He was such a troublemaker that his father had to send him there. And he met a lot of South American guys, kids from rich families, Venezuela, Argentina. They were the most fun-loving guys I ever knew in my life. Those South Americans at 15, they looked like men of 30 with mustaches. It was something to hang out with them, I got to tell you. Going through Manhattan with them was a lot of fun. And we're trying to still go on with our lives, and we're trying to protect ourselves. But we know that lunatics like Hillary Clinton, who put out the same mantra that they've been putting out since the beginning of time, are not going to protect us. It's only guys like Trump who I think could do the right thing, to be very, very frank with you. And we agree with each other on so many things. WJR, Carol, go ahead, please. You're up on the Savage Nation.
Hi, Dr. Trump. I was so glad to hear Donald Trump on your program yesterday explaining why he made those insulting remarks about Dr. Carson, which immediately lowered my opinion of Mr. Trump. I was having such confidence in his ability.
We know what you're feeling, but that's not the point to hear what you're feeling. What did you think about Trump talking about why he said it?
Well, I'll tell you, I still think he could have had a better choice of words. When he got that analogy about child molesting and that was...
Ma'am, you're bringing back up the old history. That's not what I'm trying to talk about here. Trump explained why he attacked Carson. Isn't that why you called?
Yes, he did. He did because it's competition. It's just a matter of competition, and they do this in all the...
he said to me, Michael, you're very competitive. He said, if you were where I was competing with them, you would have been just as attack of Carson, maybe even where he actually said you would have been worse. Didn't he say that? Didn't Trump say that to me?
Yes, but I don't think you would have used that choice of words. I don't think you would have used that analogy.
Well, let me think about it. If I were Trump, and let's say I was ahead in the polls and Carson had been creeping up on me with his nice guy approach, I don't know that I would have used that analogy, but people do make mistakes. They go in the wrong direction. But he certainly had decimated Carson to the point that Carson is no longer a factor.
Yeah, well, Carson is good, and I love Carson, but it's a matter of changing. He's a great surgeon, but I don't know if you can transfer that to what's deep.
That's what I'm trying to say. That's how I feel. I mean, I think Carson would make a good head of the Department of, HHS, Health and Human Services, and I think that when Donald Trump appoints me to head up the NIH or something like that, I will appoint Dr. Carson to run HHS if I get that chance. That's a funny story unto itself. Do you realize what would happen if Trump actually follows up on my suggestion that when he wins, I take an appointment to run the NIH? Do you know what would happen in that? Do you have any idea what would happen in the world of science and medicine? I've thought about it. They would go insane. They would viciously attack me, saying I don't have the credentials, you're not really a scientist, blah, 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 you're not one of us, you don't know how the grants process works. They are absolutely right. I don't know how the grants process works because there is no grants process. It's all patronage. It's one of the most corrupt systems, which is why we have very little science and why medicine has been stagnated in the United States of America. It is as corrupt as the U.S. government. What I would do is I would clean up the world of science and medicine, medical research, in a way that would give benefit to humanity, not just to Americans. Now, I know what will happen. What will happen is that some of the top scientists of the NIH would say, if Donald Trump goes ahead and appoints Michael Savage to head up the NIH, we're resigning. Guess what Michael Savage would say? Go ahead and resign, see if I care. I'll bring in scientists from India. I'll bring in scientists from Taiwan. I'll bring in scientists from Russia to replace you. Those who are not tied into the system and who are not corrupt. Those who don't know how the grant process works. Those who simply look at science and medicine as science and medicine rather than as a patronage system. So go take a job in private industry, my friend. Enjoy yourself. That's what I would do. I don't know if this is a fantasy, but I've actually thought about it. Remember, this election is going to come up next year. 1 year. We're going to the polls in November. By this time next year, by this time Thanksgiving next year, we'll know who the president's going to be from 2017 on. And if Trump wins, I'm going to ask him for a patronage job, I think. Because I would give up a lucrative career in the media and as an author. I would do it for $1 a year, by the way. You know that was done in years past? Do you know that? Do you know that loyal patriots gave up careers in the industry to in the war effort? They worked for $1 a year because they believed in America. I would do the same thing because I believe in the truth and I believe in science and I believe in real medical research. And what I see going on in this country is appalling. It has stagnated. Science and medicine has stagnated. Research have stagnated because of the corruption. It's as corrupt as the government itself. You ask any young scientist what's involved in getting a grant. You ask them if there's selections based upon, let us say, pure science or on, let's say, sexual, gender, put it that way, race. You know what kind of grants they're giving out? Virtually every study has, in the NSF, the National Science Foundation, every one of those grants that are now being written, proposals, have to say something about global warming in order to be reviewed by the corrupt science boards that review these things. So listen to me, there's a lot of cleaning up to be done in this country, and I know that most of you listening don't even know what the NSF or NIH mean. But I do. That's the only area I'd be interested in working in the government. That's the only place I could have an impact and clean things up. And I might do it for $1 a year. Give all of the money to charity, the government salary, and then keep the pension too. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the